I could ask everyone to please take your seats. We'll be ready to begin. This is a discussion only. There will be no voting on anything tonight. So I will defer to Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Councilwoman Mitchell, Chair for the.
Excuse me, Mayor. I'm sorry. I'm out of order. Mr. Clerk has to take roll call.
Okay.
Forgive me, please.
We'll make it official, too. I'll actually read what's going on.
I'm sorry.
All right. First roll call, Mr. Callahan? Here. Mr. Sierra? Here. Mr. Oswald?
Here.
Mr. Corbin?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Tolet?
Here.
Mr. Lippion's absent tonight. Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mrs. Simmons?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
And Mr. Stewart's absent tonight. We do have excuses for them, so okay.
There are excuses, Madam President, for Mr. Lippian and for Mr. Stewart.
Okay, so we do have excuses for Mr. Lippian and Mr. Stewart. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Are there any other questions?
Question.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Madam President, you are hereby notified a special council meeting that has been called for Monday, March 6, 2023 at 6 p.m. in council chambers to consider the matter of approval of the 2023 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and I will again defer to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, Mr. Clerk, for clarifying. You know, tonight's meeting, this is a request for you to approve today's budget, so I appreciate the clarification on that. The purpose of tonight was to really do a little bit of a deeper dive into the budget, give some of the department heads some chances to talk about what's in the budget, with the hopes of moving forward. If any of you are any sports players, you know, like so if you play basketball or play what's another four-quarter sport? Football. Football. You play football. You play basketball. You know, time is of the essence in a game. So imagine playing the first quarter of a game with half of the team, half of the resources, and then you're trying to win a game. And so it feels like that when we're a quarter into the year, but yet and still haven't made determinations about the rest of the game. We're not playing with all the resources we need to be successful. That includes hiring individuals who are waiting. That includes some of the incentives we'll talk about, and also some major purchases. So, you know, our goal is always going to be to try to get us to move more expeditiously in terms of approving the budget and recognizing that not every piece of the budget has to be finalized, in particular until March 31st. But in the unique case that we have right now with resources from ARPA, we don't have to rush and force these things to get the city and keep the city moving forward. So I'm going to speak through the finance documents, which you should have received in your packet. We were trying to figure out how we could put them on the screen for everybody to view them. I may just have to put them up by hand, because I would like the general public to be able to see what we're talking about as we're talking about it.
Through you, Madam President, some confusion may lie. That document indicated it was for finance on Monday, this coming a week from tonight. So I don't have mine for that very reason. I don't know if that's the same document we're talking about. So.
So in the interest of time, since we can't seem to get this document up, is there any way we can just make copies? Do it the old-fashioned way?
Yeah. Yeah, that is one way to get it. Yeah, we'll get you the copy. So as the copies are getting there, I'll just talk through, and then you'll have the documentation with it. So the first piece of the budget, which you know is our largest item in our general fund, is around our police department. And you know, as we think about public safety and the importance of public safety in the city, some of the pieces that you'll find in this budget are hiring an additional 16 officers. It also includes a signing and retention bonus for new employees to get a signing bonus based upon the grant that we received, as well as a retention bonus that we want. And one of the reasons why we're trying to expedite this is because we have a group of officers, a large group of officers who are waiting on their retention. We got that grant last year, and they still haven't received any retention check. And so by approving this, it allows us to also give them their retention bonus. So that's included in this budget, as well as security cameras for the police station, a new roof. We had a water event last week where you know, our director got a chance to see the need for that new roof at the police station. That's included in this, as well as we have a wellness grant that we received for our police office. So overall, you know, from a police standpoint, you know, our police are paid through multiple funds: our general fund, our police levy, and issue 6 funds. And this year we were fortunate to also have ARPA funds, both from the state and from the federal, from our local federal allocation. So that's the fire piece. I have Chief Pelko here and Captain Grooms here. If there's any questions in regards to the police department or anything you might want to add, Chief, to the mix. But that's what you'll see in the police budget. Any questions?
So, Mayor, if I may ask,
Yes.
you have 16 new officers ready to go? We're just waiting on them to be hired? Or
Right,
Chief
Chief.
Pelko?
Good evening. So we don't have 16 officers right now. So on March 13th, we'll be swearing in 5 new officers. We have a current list right now. We're looking at hiring. I think we have 8 officers or 8 potential candidates on that list. And we will give more tests out later in the year. We'll do another lateral list for lateral hires probably around April or May. And then we'll do another entry-level list in the late summer, early fall for some more officers.
Thank you, Chief Pelko. And, Mr. Sear, excuse me, just one second. Mr. Pileski, so the officers have not gotten their retention bonuses because why? Or help me understand, I'm sorry.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, the retention bonus is part of the new grant that we received from the state of Ohio, which is their share, part of their ARPA monies. So the retention bonus is going to be for all officers, new hires, all existing officers, patrolmen, with the exception of those that I believe are already enrolled in the DROP program, which basically is a pre-retirement program. But I believe that it's the intention of that theirs will come out of the city's share of the money. So not the ARPA, but the city's money. So I believe the retention bonus is $5,000 one time. And I believe the intent is to pay that in 2 installments.
And Madam Chair, and to the rest of the council, the reason why they haven't received that is because this budget hasn't been approved. The similar with the hiring, because you all have the ability right now to cut the budget or not approve the budget. So if we went and hired someone and then you all decided something different, we would have gotten ahead of you. So that's why these things can't happen until you approve it.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Sear, you had your hand up.
Through you, Madam President, you know, I understand part of that, but ever since issue 6 was passed the first time around, we've been hiring officers. I don't know how many that count is up to now. But our bigger problem has been the numbers have not been able to catch up because of retirements. And I don't think there's ever been a problem with doing the hiring, but we can't get them to apply fast enough, is what I understood.
Can I speak on that, Mayor?
Please, Chief.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So, we have had a problem hiring, so, that's part of our problem, as well as with, like, when I got hired with 12 officers, the group behind me got hired with 10 officers. Those are all the ones that are retiring now, so they're retiring in big groups. But along with that, I've got 8 police, candidates on a list right now. When I got hired, there was 400 or 500 names on that list. So we can't get qualified candidates. I think we started off with like 20 on this list. We've already narrowed it down to 8 because they didn't pass the physical agility, they didn't pass the written test, or they end up getting disqualified because they have drugs or something in their background that disqualifies them for our service. So there is a problem with hiring, and that ARPA grant that we got is for 12 new hires and to pay them a $5,000 recruiting bonus when they get hired. Now, they'll either get the recruiting bonus, they won't get both. They won't get the recruiting bonus and the retention bonus. They'll get the recruiting bonus for the new hires. If you're a policeman already, then you'll get the retention bonus.
Thank you.
Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair. So if you said it's already been approved to come out of ARPA funds, then we don't have to approve the budget. It's already coming out of the, we just should pay it, shouldn't we? If it's already said that it was coming out of the ARPA funds? There's retention bonuses I'm talking about. I mean,
You want, that's
Mr. Pileski?
Yeah, Director Pileski.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the retention bonuses and the recruiting bonuses will come from ARPA, the new grant, not the money that we have already. This is money that's coming from the state of Ohio, part of their ARPA distribution. So we're basically like a sub-recipient of the state's ARPA money. The officers that are in the DROP program, that money will come from the general fund or the police levy fund. I believe there's 8 or 9 of those. But I do want to mention that in the application or the program that was written about the new policemen and the grant, it calls for the retention and the retention bonus to be paid in March, but March is a 3-pay month, 3 paydays in March. So we have a payday on March 31st. So if the budget passes on the 20th, we will get the bonuses out on the pay of March 31st.
Thank you. Are there any, Mr. Talat?
So just to, through you, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. So as we had planned it in Finance Committee, when we go through and make the final changes to the budget, and then we send those recommendations to full council, we have plenty of time that we don't have to do it tonight. We don't have to approve it tonight to be paid out in March.
If you're talking about the bonuses, correct. So
Yes.
it'll pass on the 20th, and that's the week we'll be working on the final pay of the month, which is paid on the 31st. So we will be able to get the bonuses in for that final pay of March.
Thank you, Mr. Pileski.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Muir, did you want to continue?
Yeah. So we're working on getting it up on the screen so folks can actually see what we're talking about as opposed to just listening to us. Any other questions for the chief on the signing bonus? And again, I don't know if I missed the last part of what was said, but one of the things we're waiting on is, the approval of the budget so we know it's approved to be able to hire the folks that we need to hire. If we go ahead and do it without, you can always approve something less than, and now we're having a different conversation. That's just the process. That's just the general process.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to reiterate again, we're not going to vote on this evening. It is our understanding that this was just for discussion only, and that's what we're doing. It will be discussed at the finance meeting on the 13th and voted in full council on the 20th. And as Mr. Pileski just said, that's plenty of time for these officers to get their retention voting. But there's no legislation for us to even vote on this evening, so we will not be holding a vote.
That's fine.
Thank
That's
you.
fine. That's fine. But I did think it was important to have the departments here to talk about what's in the budget, talk about the details. If you all decided not to, that would be your prerogative and your decision. We wanted to do our part to present and answer any questions that may be so we can keep the ball rolling forward. So if there's no other questions for Chief Pelko, I think we also have here, I know Chief Fernesti was unable to make it, but from a fire standpoint, they're looking to hire a couple new firefighters as well. So that's in this budget, as well as you'll notice that they've decreased the amount of their request on minimum manning overtime. So part of the strategy with the fire department was if we increased our people power, if we hired more, there would be a less need for overtime. So you'll have that as well. You'll see that in the budget as well. Okay. Well, they found it up there. Yep. Thank you for getting that up there too, for everybody who helped pull that up. So that's the fire communications you've already passed. That came before you all. Again, we appreciate y'all taking the sense of urgency with the communications budget. They've already started rolling with the work that they're doing, so we appreciate that. You can go down to the next page. Next, we have community planning and zoning. So this is a budget that includes a couple different departments, but we have everyone here. We have community development here, as well as the building department here. Is Chief Farkas here? Do you want to talk a little bit about your department and kind of some of the hiring that you're looking to do that's in this budget, as well as answer any questions?
Thank you, Madam President, through you to the mayor. As I've mentioned, per the past year-end report for our department, we have had a great increase in activity. We've had a surge in residential construction as well as commercial. We have also experienced a fluctuation in staff as other communities are losing inspectors to retirement. I call it they're going fishing in our department for certified personnel because the other cities pay much more. So in order to counter that, we acted, and I call at least get in the ballpark with our particular wages. We adjusted our plumbing inspector wage and our electrical wage, and I'm also proposing to adjust our certified building inspector wage, just to make it competitive and comparable to other cities. That way, we keep the talent we have, and we don't have to reset and hunt. As of this moment, we are currently searching for a state-certified plumbing inspector. And let me tell you, it's proving quite difficult. A lot of people are settled in communities they have their retirement, they don't want to move. Fortunately, we are getting some prospects that are interested of getting out of the field. Unfortunately, they do not hold the state certification necessary to apply. They could get their interim. With that, I have anticipated some of the union perks that are offered for having additional certifications. I've accumulated monies for the permit technician position, which is the secretarial staff that we have. Again, these secretaries, they run the front half of the department, and I couldn't do it without them. They run the front half, I run the back half. And with that permit tech incentive, which is offered through the Board of Building Standards, ICC, they would receive another $1.50 an hour for that incentive. And again, this isn't just a position you can plug anyone in because it takes literally 5 years to learn that position because there's so much information that is incumbent upon them. I've also had in the budget for the request for another housing inspector. As I mentioned in the past, years ago, we used to have 5 housing inspectors that were solely geared for property maintenance. Over the years, we have been reduced down to 2 for the entire city, leaving what we call outside the bubble of their target area upon our construction inspectors. Due to the increase in workloads, the construction inspectors are buried, and we're having an overflow of basically cases that are going through the cracks or getting called up in court, et cetera. So lastly, I had on there to have an actual part-time help to help with some scanning. Due to our original secretarial position being to one person, we did hire someone as a clerk to help out. In that 5-year interim, we have fallen behind in our scanning. It's a mess. We need help to take the time because it's time consuming. So other than that, that's pretty much a roundabout of what I'm doing.
Thank you, Mr. Farkas. Mrs. Davis?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Farkas. Your experienced plumbers, or can you get those from JVS, or how long does it take for them to get a state certified when these kids are training very well at JVS? So is there an incentive for them to go on to school to get this certification, or what we need to do?
Madam President, through you to Mrs. Davis, that's a great question. The Joint Vocational School churns out a lot of talented youngsters. They typically get placed in the field in these job applications of electrical, plumbing, carpentry. In regards to meeting the requirements, the State Board of Building Standards has a minimum guideline of 7 years experience to be a plumber. Unfortunately, as they come out of the JVS, they have to be in the field for 7 years. And that is purposeful because by then you have gone through all the rigors of many different scenarios. And in the state's eyes, if I can say loosely, that is construed as you've been through enough, you should be able to transition into a building inspector or plumbing inspector's position to where you can say, I understand that, now you apply the code section to that, and the two meld together into one. I hope that answered your question.
Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam President. Mr. Farkas, lately I've been having a lot of people come to me about the issues of our commercial buildings. You've seen what's happening on Broad Street, a few others. Okay, so we have a problem. So in conversation, I find out that I'm going to set in place a referral to discuss how we can get inspections on these buildings. Here to find out that, and we will have that discussion, but to find out that we used to do this a while back, and so maybe this is a program that's fallen by the wayside because maybe not enough money, but here again, if you need the money, and I know it's tight all over the place, but you need to do the job so people won't be yelling at us for not doing our job. So maybe you can, if I said it wrong, you can explain it a little bit better.
Madam President, through you to Mr. Oswald. Yes, years ago, we used to have what's called a systematic of the downtown area. That is when we had staffing of 5 property maintenance inspectors. We had one person dedicated solely to the downtown that went building by building. Then it was not well received. It was mixed reviews. Others wanted it, others didn't want it, but it was geared solely on the exterior. Unfortunately, due to staff cuts and layoffs, we're just understaffed. We don't have the power to do it. Moving forward, if we get this additional property maintenance inspector, that will do so much good for our department because it will alleviate the burden of the 2 housing inspectors I have now and also take the burden off the construction inspectors to where we can actually produce a little bit more and accomplish what Mr. Oswald is looking for.
Thank you, Mr. Tolet. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Can I go ahead?
Please.
Yes, sir, through you, Madam Chair. That is one of the reasons, again, he can't hire the person until you all approve the budget. And that's one of the reasons why we're like, okay, we're entering a quarter of the year here and waiting to move forward. But that gives context of why we're presenting this tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Tolet?
Through you, Madam Chair. Mr. Farkas, one of the many outstanding things you did last year is adjust rate fees. Doing a little quick head math on the request for your department, it appears, if the numbers that I'm putting together, is your additional funding that came in from the rate fee changes will pay for the additional budget. Would that be close to being an accurate statement?
Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Tolet, yes. As indicated last year, the tally was from July and think until like November 28th is when I reported to council on what budget we brought in. We brought in an additional $250,000 just in that 6-month period. If the housing trend runs true as it is now, it has slowed down due to the economy, but we're anticipating a bounce back. Yes, that would cover that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Farkas? Mayor?
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, Community Development, Director Ashley Scott. Our budget is pretty similar to just carrying over what was there last year, including completing of the comprehensive land use plan that we started last year. We hope that you all have filled out that survey and hoping to get your residents in your wards to fill out that survey. But is there any questions for Director Scott on the Community Development budget?
I see no questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Hearing none, we'll move on to Parks and Rec. So I'm going to skip down past the administrative, IT, mayors, and try to get to some things that right here, Parks and Recreation. And our summer camp. So if Director Reardon could come to the microphone and maybe give an overview of what's happening in Parks and Rec. There is a request for an additional laborer in this budget. As you know, we are expanding our parks, and what's that? With that, it should be on the page 2. Page 2. Next page down, page 2. Yep. God, okay, we'll get through it. It's all good. So you have it in front of you physically, but they can't see it up on the screen. But you can see from the parks budget for this year, I'll just read off the numbers. This year's request for Parks and Recreation is $1.3 million. So to be specific, it's $1,376,518 for the Parks and Recreation. And you'll see that this is a slight increase from what we actually spent in 2022. So Director Reardon, you want to just give an overview of the department and maybe talk a little bit about that additional labor position?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, through you, Madam Chair. So as the Mayor stated, and I apologize, I have it here, but not quite broken down like it is there, but the increase...
If I can interrupt, I believe it's on page 19. That's where I found Parks and Rec.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's probably going to be the Special Parks and Recreation Fund. So
Wow.
we have in the general fund, we have Parks and Rec, we have summer camp, we have
Swimming pool.
Swimming pools and the ice rink, and then we have the Special Parks and Recreation Fund, which is basically an enterprise fund that accounts for concession sales and user fees, and some of Kerry's programming is taken out of the Special Parks Fund. So that's probably on page 19 is the
And Mr. Pileski, how much of issue 6 funds go to Park and Rec, please? I think it's like
281.
And through you, Madam Chair, as he's pulling that up, there's also what you see on the screen is the Parks and Rec ARPA funds that were allocated. So in addition to the funds that the director mentioned, the general fund, the summer camp, the swimming pool, the ice rink, the revenue fund, there's also this Parks and Rec fund. So, for the general public, I think it's important for folks to know that, there's many places sometimes in the budget that covers one department. As you heard from police, you heard at least 4 different buckets of funding to help support the police. And as you can hear with Parks and Rec, there's at least 5 this year that are supporting Parks and Rec.
And issue 6 was specifically dedicated, that there would be dedicated money going to Parks and Rec, and I would like to know how much that is, please. Like 1.5 million.
So, through you, Madam Chair, can she go ahead and do that overview of the Parks and Rec?
Absolutely, Mrs. Reardon, please go ahead, excuse me.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I'll just talk a little bit about, it's general fund, but it's 60, so it's just our general Parks and Rec, and that's where the additional labor we have requested. As you guys all know, we're adding more amenities, more facilities, more things that need to be maintained. So I did think it was important to try to get at least one additional staff for this year to make sure that we're keeping up on all of those things, whether it's, the restrooms, the trails, things like that that need the attention, the buildings. So there is an increase in, like I said, 10160 for Parks and Rec. For salaries, we did up our operating and maintenance. Again, costs overall are going up, so we did up that money. Kind of the same thing across the board as the mayor mentioned. We have a bunch of different funds here, so as far as staffing, as long as we're able to get people to come into work, we did up that a little bit, and we do that every year because of, minimum wage goes up, all the costs go up, so things like that. Our issue 6 was passed earlier, so we have already started, some of those projects, not all of them, but a lot of them have been started. And I do apologize, I did not print that number off to bring tonight to know what that was approved, but I don't know if Director Pulaski.
Through you, Madam Chair. So in the issue 6, Parks and Rec, the budget right now that will be considered next Monday is $2,706,232. Some of that would have been open encumbrances from the prior year, projects that were started but not completed.
Thank you, Mr. Pulaski. Ms. Reardon?
Oh, thank you, through you. I was just going to mention that a big portion of that is rollover, and then also a portion of that will be in reimbursement through, we have, I believe, 3 outstanding grants right now. West Park, the North Park Playground that we're working on getting reimbursed, and then also the Washington Village. So there is just about, I think, $500,000 that would be reimbursed back after all of those projects are complete and everything.
I'll believe West Park when I see it. Taking years. Mrs. Reardon, are you done? Are you ready for questions? Mayor?
Yeah, Councilwoman Mitchell and Madam Chair, you really bring up a point that I think one of my frustrations or challenges is really thinking about these projects that have been on the docket for years and like, well, why aren't these things moving forward? And oftentimes the conversation comes back to capacity, that we need more people to be able to manage all the work that's happening. And so, I feel your frustration. I've been waiting to see some grass get dug up at West Park, but I'm confident, again, if we can provide more capacity and support to the directors, that frees up their time to be able to focus on these sort of projects that as again, some of these projects are 2 years old,
Well, Mr. Mayor, what does the young man Brandon do exactly?
So she can speak to it better than I can, but Brandon and Kaylee are both our program managers for the Parks and Rec. So they manage our programs. So if you have ideas for programs, those are the folks you want to go to. Yeah, I guess if you want to go into more detail, they're rec supervisors and.
Yeah, through you, exactly what the mayor said. They're recreation supervisors, so they're planning the programs that people are attending.
Thank you, Mrs. Reardon. Are you open for questions? Are there any questions for Mrs. Reardon? I see none.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director. Next, we don't have someone to speak from cemeteries. So I'll talk a little bit about cemeteries, and Director Lundy can chime in, or Director Williams. What you'll notice in the budget for cemetery is a slight increase, again, to add an additional labor. They were shorthanded, and they are shorthanded right now. And Director Lundy can speak a little bit about the consequences of being shorthanded in the cemetery.
Yeah, unfortunately, recently we had to contact some of the funeral home directors to indicate that we weren't going to be open at Brookdale for, I believe it was a Thursday and a Friday. That was due in part to one with medical, another with a vacation. And I understand this is something that did happen during COVID as well, too, when a couple folks were hit with COVID. So there's no question that we need extra support out there so that we can continue to be operational and meet the needs of the community.
So, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, that's one of the requests you'll see here in the budget as well. The next department head I wanted to, oh, do you have a question?
No, go right ahead, I'm sorry, excuse me. I was just gonna ask if anybody had questions on
Okay.
cemetery. Mrs. Davis?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, through you, to the mayor and, Director Lund. Do the new hire has to be, do you have to have a special certification?
You would have thought I planted you for that question. So this position that we are looking to fill is a skilled labor position. Our goal is to make sure, when we talk to the maintenance manager out there, he is very passionate about making sure the person that comes to that department has the skills and ready to do the work, as opposed to just an entry-level person that may not have all the, the necessary skills that they can actually feel the need that exists. So this would be a skilled labor position, union position, that would be posted.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Madam President, to the mayor. So, like, you mean somebody that knows how to run a backhoe, someone knows that type of person, the actual hands-on type person? Okay. And, well, I just have to say that I know I'm by Ridge Lawn all the time, and they've been doing a heck of a job keeping that up. They're taking trees down, so I don't get out to the other ones as much, but, yeah, I know that one's doing really good, but I know they're always short-handed. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, we wanted to have Director Yousefi come up from HR. This HR department was created prior to my administration, but it's been a great value to the city. So Director Yousefi is going to speak a little bit about the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee that was created. You'll notice that was one of the changes that was made from the initial budget to the budget that you see today. So I've asked Director Yousefi to talk about that DEI committee and a little bit about what's happening in HR.
Ms. Yousefi?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Couple of things other than I'll end with the DEI committee information. A couple of things that we're looking at, though, moving forward this year on our budget is we're going to continue on with our management training classes that we started last year. We did them once a month. Going to be picking that back up again. We are focusing this year on our wellness programs through our Vitality. So you'll be seeing more and more emails around that. And then the DEI committee, we formed it probably about 7 months ago, and we have 10 employees right now who are volunteered to serve. And what the committee is committed to is ensuring the diversity, equity, and inclusion of all employees, regardless of age, race, color, disability, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, or veteran status, and that making sure that remains a priority here for the city. We'll be reviewing our hiring practices. We'll be looking at all different programs that are going on in the city and through the lens of diversity.
Mrs. Yousefi? Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in the interest of time, I see that we're getting close. That look, I know that look any day. I'll just open up. Are there any questions that anybody has in regards to the budget that we could answer or get an answer from you that would help garner some confidence in moving forward?
Are there any questions from any of the council members? I see none. Well, I'm going to ask for more money for streets, straight up. Mr. Simmons?
I got a question. So basically...
Your mic.
Through you, Madam Chair. So basically, we are behind in almost every department. Is it because of COVID, that we don't have enough staff, that...
Yeah. I can answer. Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I think we're a part of what everybody is experiencing, help wanted you see everywhere. But I do think what we're trying to do, a couple strategies we have in terms of retaining employees is creating, competitive wages. We think that's important to have competitive wages, and then creating pathways within departments. We talked about cemeteries earlier, and one thing that happens is, Tom may have a great employee in cemetery, but they're in the entry-level wage. And so another job bid opens up that pays more, and there's no pathway to stay in cemetery, so they leave to a department where they really wanted to stay there. So we're trying to create internal pathways within departments so people can get trained up and stay within a space if they're able to demonstrate the skill and ability.
Any other questions? If I may ask a question, Mr. Pileski, how much money do we have for streets this year?
Could you please repeat, please? How much what? How much what?
How much money do we have for residential streets this year from issue 6?
We appropriated, there's $2,319,525 in the issue 6 fund appropriated. There was an encumbrance that carried over, so I believe that this year's program will be somewhere around $2 million.
And, that sounds like a lot of money, but when you start doing streets, $2 million is nothing. It really isn't. And we are going to have a discussion Wednesday night at Utilities where we will discuss what streets we're going to do and get that finalized. And we'll try to do as many as we can. But $2 million is nothing. Mr. Pileski?
To follow up, we also, the license plate fee money that goes into the Muni Motor Vehicle Tax Fund, that money is used to secure grants. So usually through the Ohio Public Works Commission, we do other streets. They pick up usually 89% of the project, and the city kicks in the remaining 11%. In some cases, we get a 0% loan to do the OPWC projects, and that payment comes out of the Muni Motor Vehicle License Plate Tax. So there are other funds that are going toward roads, but in your question, the residential, it's about $2 million. Yeah.
Thank you. I saw hands up. Mr. Serra?
Through you, Madam President, just for the record, there is a referral for Monday in finance for an additional $1 million out of ARPA funds.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair. So we're focused on all our bills right now. So is anybody focusing how the city is going to make money to put into the general fund as far as economic development? Because, like I said, all we're doing is we see our bills here, and I'm thinking every time we have a project that makes us money, there's opposition. I mean, it's good. We have to, everything goes together, but this is what pays our bills. We're trying to get other communities so we can take care of their water, so we can get money from the water. We get money from sewer rates. This is, I think, needs to be focused also, just not paying the bills. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, if I may respond to that.
Please.
That is so important, Councilman Oswald, which is why we think it's important to be having public discussions and public engagement about how we use the ARPA funds. That's why we think that's so important, because this was a one-time opportunity, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity we have. And if we just spend it on just paying the bills in front of us and status quo, we're going to miss the opportunity to invest in things that 20 years from later will keep revenue coming into the city. And that happens from attracting business into the city. That happens from community development, so making it a place that people enjoy to live, so investing in our parks and our programs and things that make this place, I want to move to Elyria. I want to spend money in Elyria. And so that's why my challenge to us is do the hard work and spend the time and engage the community. That's why we feel like let's go ahead and pass this general fund budget so we can move on and engage the public to say, hey, what do y'all think is important for the city? What's most important to invest this one-time opportunity in, and let that be our guide for our decisions moving forward. So that's the purpose of today, to say the general fund part we got. You don't have any questions on it. We hear that loud and clear. The staff are ready to rock and roll. Let's get that approved and move on so that now we can have a broader discussion around what are we going to do with this opportunity with this $7 million we have in ARPA, that we could really make an investment, as I mentioned, a down payment on the future, so that we can see that return of investment. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the interest of time, we have another meeting at 7 o'clock, not a.m., but 7 o'clock. I want to thank all the department heads for taking time out of your evening to be here. We appreciate you. Thank you all so much. I will entertain a motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Are there any questions, discussions?
Question.
Call for the question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next meeting will begin at 7 o'clock p.m. promptly. Thank you.